Stand by now for the 33rd edition of See It Now with Edward R. Murrow, which originates in the control room of Studio 41 in New York City. Alcoa, Aluminum Company of America, in cooperation with CBS Television, presents the distinguished reporter and news analyst Edward R. Murrow in See It Now, a document for television, based on the week's news and told through the actual voices and faces that made the news. Edited and produced by Mr. Murrow and Fred W. Friendly. A public service of Aluminum Company of America, the nation's leading producer of aluminum. Now, speaking to you from the actual control room of Studio 41 is the editor of See It Now, Edward R. Murrow.
Good evening. For the past few weeks, we have been taking our cameras and microphones on informal visits to candidates. The day before yesterday, we were in Denver to spend a little time with the Eisenhowers. We encountered General Eisenhower in his office at the Brown Palace Hotel signing letters. We asked him just how many times a day he signed his own name. More letters kept coming in for signature.
Well, the number varies now, of course, but depending on the activities of the day. Some days are taken up mostly in meetings, some in signing. But once when I was heading a discharge unit in the Army after World War I signed my name 4,800 times in the same day.
General Eisenhower seemed to be doing a number of things at almost the same time. We asked, how does this new life affect you?
Time to think. I do so many mechanical things during the day that I don't have an original thought anymore. You know, I get sick of myself. But now yesterday, trying to get that talk ready. After all, you give the subject, and I can talk on this subject for 2 hours solid to the kids. But to try to get it down to its proper time, try to get a few lines in that are not completely banal, and then allow for interruption from a friendly audience and so on. I had no time to think.
We asked if we might get Mrs. Eisenhower to sit and talk with her. First, he didn't think so. But on second thought, he thought it might be done.
Yeah, why? Well, I'll tell you what you might do then. You know a lady, she always wants, if she's going to have picture taken, she wants a bit of time. So what I'd do, if we can guess at the time we're going to be out there, call her up and ask her whether she would appear for a few seconds, or I'll do that.
There was a new stack of letters to be signed, but the general left his office, took us to 750 Lafayette Street, the home of Mrs. Dowd, his mother-in-law, 15 minutes by car from downtown. We decided to set up our cameras on the back lawn. It was hot, 87 degrees in the shade. So we removed our jackets and started asking questions.
General, is this campaigning like anything you've ever done before? Completely strange, and I must say it's mystifying.
This sort of interferes with your golf game, doesn't it? Very markedly.
What about the painting?
Painting, I haven't even unwrapped my painting box since I've gotten here. Haven't had time.
And bridge?
None. None. A very demanding activity, this thing, because there's so many facets to it, so many people to see and so many different things to do, including preparations of talks and meeting of people. It's very demanding.
Do you find that writing political speeches is more difficult for you than writing military documents and orders?
Yes, because it's not only a strange world, but, you know, I'm merely trying to be honest and show my own approach to these problems. There's so many of them I don't pretend to have an answer, you know.
General, you have said repeatedly that you would not engage in personalities. Why not?
First of all, I believe nothing is gained by dealing in personalities. Moreover, when you deal in personalities, you create hurt feelings, and they are very difficult ever to heal. In a way, it is an unforgivable thing if it is not necessary in order to show the difference between, let's say, doctrine or principle. Moreover, I personally have been the target of many kinds of personal attacks, and finally, I think they create the feeling in me there wasn't a very big man that made them. Well, that's exactly what I feel about this personality.
General, you've sort of made this your headquarters when you come back from military service occasionally, haven't you?
At the end, he was talking.
Since 1916, when I was married here. Wait a minute. We got a man here that's been in this place taking care of this yard since the house was built. Tim, come over here a minute.
Ed, this is Tim Guiney, an old friend of mine who's been around this house and been with the Dowd family.
Tim, how long have you been working here?
Over 30 years.
In general, are you going to support the General in this undertaking?
Definitely.
Why?
Well, I used to be a Democrat, you know, but we ain't got any Democrat Party anymore since Tom Jefferson left it. We have the New Deal, Fair Deal, Poll Deal, the Clipper Deal.
But this time you're quite sure you're going to vote for the General, right?
Oh, you betcha.
Well, that's a very good campaign speech you've just listened to, General. Thank you very much indeed, Kim. Glad to have met you.
Okay, thank you a lot.
It's kind of hot.
Yeah, that is.
Are you going to Chicago?
Yeah,
When?
about the night of the 4th, probably.
You'll be back again?
Oh, yes, I'll be back.
You will stay for the convention?
I'll stay there for the convention. I'll be back here.
Good luck to you, and I...
Well, I'll see you before I go, Tim. See you before I go.
General, why did you... Tim was just speaking about Chicago. Why did you decide to go up there for the convention?
Ed, you've known me for a good many years, and particularly in these latter years when I have been one of the senior Army officers, and you got used to a situation in which I was sort of the boss, at least over my own staff and my own surroundings, my own movements. I'm not anymore. These so-called political associates have taken over, and I'm obeying their orders and their recommendations.
You know, General, it's probably going to be a lot hotter in Chicago than it is here.
I have no doubt about that, but it's warm enough here that Mamie thought of bringing us out some iced tea, and she'd be along in a second.
Here.
No,
Let's bring up the...
plenty hot. Hope I get it down.
There you are. You hope you can pour it. There, you're the hostess here.
I can pour it all right. Of course, you might get a little extra ice, but then... Ed, you like to have sugar in yours?
No, I'll have it just as it comes, thank you.
I'll give you a little extra ice, sir.
Wonderful.
How about a piece of lemon?
No, just right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take a piece of lemon, but no sugar.
Mamie, how are you enjoying this campaigning?
Well, I must admit, it's been terrifically interesting as far as I'm concerned. I've been much impressed with the women, the numbers of women that have gone out to work.
What sort of questions do the women ask, generally?
There's always one they ask, and that's about Korea.
Uh-huh.
That's the one question that most women ask. I think it's because they're probably mothers and they're interested in what's going to happen to their sons or maybe their grandsons, or how Korea's going to affect the world from now on in.
But incidentally, they always ask that question very sympathetically because they know that our boy is going to Korea this month, and they always ask it very sympathetically.
You probably miss your son and your grandchildren, don't you?
Oh, I should say we do. House is mighty lonesome without them.
General, do you mind being called a conservative?
No, and I'll tell you a strange reason about that. I don't mind what names they call me. I remember when my mother used to conserve things in the fall, and she didn't conserve the cockleburrs and the sunflowers, she conserved the good things out of the garden. All that I'm trying to do is to conserve the good things that we've had all these years.
You don't mind us being called a conservative either, do you, baby?
Nobody explains it like that.
Tell me, does he get irritable now working these long hours under strain all the time?
I'll tell you the truth, I don't see him long enough to know whether he's irritable or not.
The other day, Senator Lodge came out here and made some rather optimistic statements, and there seems to be a considerable amount of optimism around your headquarters. How do you feel about it? Are you confident? Are you making any predictions?
Well, Ed, Cabot Lodge and his associates are experienced politicians. They know what's going on in a struggle like this. Moreover, they're honest men, and they're certainly not trying to kid themselves or kid me. Moreover, beyond this, I never went into a fight in my life except to win, so my answer would have to be, yes, I share their confidence.
That was candidate Dwight D. Eisenhower in the backyard of his mother-in-law's home in Denver, Colorado. It's time now for the Alcoa commercial. We have had what the technicians would perhaps call a mechanical malfunction, which means that one of our transmitters, one of our film machines, has gone kaput. They were going to give you a commercial on that new great liner, the SS United States, to demonstrate the great contribution that has been made by aluminum to the construction of that vessel. As I say, one of our projectors has quit on us, so we will not be able to bring you the middle commercial. We have been doing this program for the Aluminum Company of America for a very considerable time now. Upon occasion, we have lost commercials, not because of mechanical difficulties, but...
Telesini is ready.
Ah, Telesini says that they are now ready. So we will proceed with the second half of the program. We know that we have atomic bombs. We know that the Russians have atomic bombs. We know that those bombs are capable of destroying cities. The question arises, however, as to whether or no the Russians are capable of delivering those bombs upon American targets. In the course of the next 15 minutes, you will see a simulated bombing attack on the Empire State Building in New York City. The planes used will be B-29s because they are very similar to the Russian planes, the Russian Tu-4. The mission will take off from a base somewhere in Europe. There will be no bombs in the bays. The guns will be cold on the fighters. Only the gun cameras will be used. We will be using two different types of jets as interceptors here. I will try to do the narration on the first half of this action from this control room here in New York. The second half I shall do from a radar observer's position in an all-weather T-94. Our chief European correspondent, Howard K. Smith, will be talking from the flight deck of a B-29 that is coming across the ocean from somewhere in Europe. That flight will take about 20 hours. The mission in Europe begins, as they all do, with a briefing.
The purpose of this mission today, gentlemen, is to test the capability of the Eastern Defense Forces by making a simulated attack on New York City by using B-29s. This will be a low-level penetration attack to test and or evade the radar surveillance net. Your altitude en route will be 12,000 feet until approximately 70 miles from Bangor, arriving at Bangor at 1300 Zebra. At 1300 Zebra, you will rendezvous with two other B-29s.
The B-29 was selected for the mission because it is almost identical to the Russian Tu-4, which was modeled after a B-29 captured in the late war.
It is now X hours as our B-29 moves down the runway on this field in England. Loaded to the turrets, it's a long, slow, hard takeoff. We're airborne at X hours and 45 seconds. X hours and 30 minutes. Below us on the right, Pembroke. The tip of Wales, the last dry land we shall see until North America. 2,400 miles of deep Black Sea ahead of us. We're chasing the sunset westwards across the Atlantic.
The flight will take 20 hours. This one went by way of the Great Circle route. It is more likely that an enemy attack would come over the Arctic and Canada. During the long night, the plane stays at 12,000 feet, but it begins to lose altitude as it nears the coast.
X plus 13 hours, the USA at last, the coast of Maine near Bangor. Down to 1,000 feet, the purpose to steal under the radar net, to escape detection, scrape the treetops in the hope of reaching the target area unspotted.
This radar antenna, and many like it, revolves 24 hours every day. But an enemy plane can conceal itself by coming in low and letting the curvature of the earth or high points of the land protect him.
At X plus 18 hours, over the agreed rendezvous point, two other B-29s who will accompany us on the rest of this mission, we're now down to about 500 feet to make doubly sure about that radar net.
The low-flying planes stay away from the big towns. but sooner or later have to pass over a community. This is East Millinocket, and these ladies are volunteer ground observers. They get no pay.
Aircraft flash, 3, multi-motor, very low, Fox Queen, 2-4, red.
All multi-engine planes they see, regardless of size or markings, they report to Bangor Filter Center. At Bangor, every observed flight is given a number and charted.
10 miles.
This one becomes number 211.
3 miles southeast of observation post, flying southwest. Check, thank you.
The man with the 211 flag is the Dean of Engineering at the University of Maine. He does this in his spare time.
Multi-motor, very low. Calling radar number 4.
Next, Flight 211 reaches radar 4, a plotting center far up the New England coast.
First plot, George Queen, 2142, flying southwest. Track number 211. Time, 10:21.
Roger, I've got it. Plotter, I have initial plot for you. Roger. It is in George Queen, 2142. George Queen, 2142. Right. Its direction is southwest. Direction southwest. 3 aircraft. Multi-motor, very low.
Sergeant, do we have any flight plans from CAA on track 211?
Nothing at all, sir.
Let's make track 211 unknown. Well, let's scramble blue flight on a heading of 230 at 1,000 feet.
Blue flight leader is Dow Air Force Base, also in Maine. Here, F-86 Sabre-jet interceptors stand at the head of the runway 24 hours a day. The pilots are just a few feet away in the ready truck. They can be airborne in less than 3 minutes.
Alert Travis and radar 4. Scramble blue flight. Go, boy, go!
Reporter Ed Scott flew alongside one of the 4 scrambled planes.
This is Ed Scott in a T-33 jet taking off alongside with the F-86s. Takeoff time, 10:28. We had no briefing before scrambling and taking off. If radar or ground observers spots the enemy, they'll notify us and give us locations and directions.
Blue flight leader, this is radar 4. Our unknown is not on my scope. He is flying low and is last reported by Ground Observer Corps 30 miles southwest of Bangor. Over.
Been over Maine 10 minutes now, no sign of U.S. planes.
This cabin was designated as a ground observation post. A sighting from here would have given the jet pilots something to work from. This one is abandoned and silent, and it makes it tough on the pilots.
Been up here more than 30 minutes, no information from radar. No luck either in finding anything up here in Maine.
Still no sign of any interceptors. If they know we're coming in, they can't find us.
1 hour and still no interceptions. My pilot has just told me we are now returning to base.
Back at Bangor Filter Center, they give up on 211, not knowing whether it is an enemy or a friendly plane off course. This observation post on this fire tower might have helped, but it was unmanned.
At X plus 18 and a half hours, we're over the Merrimack River. Just a little ways from Groton, and on the left is Boston.
This church is southwest of Boston. After more than 70 minutes over U.S. soil, a second spotting is made by an observer. Her call travels down the coast to the New Haven Filter Center, where Flight 211 becomes alive again. 3 multi-engined planes, unidentified.
Very low. No delay.
The filter center calls Radar 12, which plots all planes in the southern New England area.
Multi-motor.
Radar 12 calls for jet interceptors, scrambles a flight of all-weather F-94s at Otis Air Force Base on Cape Cod.
Operation Scramble Red Flight.
Said a jet pilot to a reporter. Getting a little old for this sort of thing, aren't you? Jet pilots fly faster and run faster than the rest of us. Our recording gear was strapped in where the radar set usually goes. A jet leans you back against the seat when they pour on the power for takeoff. There isn't any great sense of speed. Seems that someone is just pulling the ground back from under you.
Roger, Red Leader, airborne with 4 chicks, port to 350, over.
At X plus 19 and a half hours, Bridgeport, Connecticut, just below and ahead of us.
Roger, wind steady on 350, bogey at 2 o'clock, 30 miles, over.
Pinkerton says they have picked up the strangers on their radar. Our flight leader has picked them up, but we cannot see them visually. Only broken clouds below.
Red Leader, airspeed 350, Angel 7.
Pinkerton is moving these jets around in the sky as though they were tied to the end of a string, telling them to change course, to reduce speed, to increase speed, trying to bring us in contact with the bogies. We've got a tally-ho now and a visual contact with the B-29s.
Roger, thank you. Check ADCC for any B-29 airplanes in this area.
Now, for the first time, pilot eyes have seen them and identified them as B-29 type aircraft. But there is still the possibility that SAC, the Strategic Air Command, has B-29s in this area. They call SAC at Omaha to check.
Strategic Air Command has no B-29s operating in the New York area.
Anti-aircraft, New York area. 3 B-29 type aircraft approaching New York City. Alert your batteries. Civil Defense, New York City, red alert.
From the moment of the alert, their radar scope will track the bombers and aim the 120-millimeter guns.
Target perhaps 20 minutes away, we're climbing, still climbing, to attain bombing altitude. The interceptors are coming in at us now. By all calculations, that would have got one of our planes, or we would have gotten him.
Now we're up on the left wing. For the moment, I've lost the B-29s in the clouds, but the pilot obviously can see them. This B-29 is not coming toward us. This is our gun camera as we attacked it at 550 miles per hour. And if it had been the real thing, the bomber would have been shooting back. Splash 1 B-29, shot down.
Now we're going in on a beam attack. The gun cameras are firing and we pull up terrific speed. Another pass, beam attack on the port side of this formation of B-29s. When he pulls out, there's a tendency for things to blur a little.
Now we're over Long Island Sound. We're setting the craft now for the bombing target, which is only minutes away. Bombardiers at the bomb site. The plane will be set on its course now and won't vary no matter what happens, spiders or not. We go right up to Manhattan Island and to the bombing target.
The anti-aircraft men reported they had the bombers in their sights more than long enough to get them, but there was no way of proving it. And even at this point, the bombers would have hit something.
Continue tracking!
X plus 20 hours, and we're in the target area on time. Just below us is the Harlem River. Across the East River to the left, you can see Triborough Bridge and Hell's Gate. Laid out before us like a carpet is Manhattan Island, and off in the hazy distance is the target itself, the Empire State Building. And out before us now is Central Park. Our bombardier says that he has decided to drop the bomb about 1 mile from the target to allow for wind and the angle. We're going to drop the bomb at the end of Central Park.
Our number 2 camera is out in the bomb bay. That thin white line you're looking at is where the bomb bay doors don't quite mesh.
We're about 10 seconds from the bomb release.
Bomb bay doors coming open.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, bombs away. Close the doors. Let's get out of here.
Planes completed their bomb run just 3 minutes before noon. Electronic measurements indicated that the bomb would have exploded within 1 block of the Empire State Building. Of course, this was a simulated raid, little more than an exercise. No one can be sure how many of those bombers would have been shot down by fighters, how many would have fallen to the ack-ack guns on the ground. We asked General Ben Chidlaw, the chief of the Air Defense Command, whether this was about the way it might happen. He said it was. He reminded us that according to the Air Force estimates, about 70% of a determined attacking force would probably get through to the target. He also reminded us, and he said that the Ground Observer Corps was the one thing that would help sustain and strengthen our present radar screen. We were reminded also that the Ground Civilian Observer Corps now has just about 1/3 the number of people required to do the job. A few minutes ago, we explained to you that we had lost our commercial. That is because the commercial is projected off one projector and the rest of the program off another. So since we do not have the commercial projector, I would remind you that this program is sponsored by the Aluminum Company of America. That in the course of the past many months that we have been working for them, they have never said to us, you should do this or should not do that. Even after it has been done, they have never suggested or said, you should not have done it. We're going off the air for a period of 9 weeks. We shall see you again in the autumn, again, to our great pleasure, working for the Aluminum Company of America. Good night, and good luck.
Tune in the conventions on the CBS television network.